Hello, Chiefs Kingdom, and welcome to the Arrowhead Kingdom CHIEFScast, live from the Wolf Den. I'm Chris.
And I'm Josh, and tonight we are going to be talking about Week 10, and a big reminder that all Chiefs fans are invited to join us for game day. Please visit arrowheadkingdom.org to learn more about the group and to find your local chapter. And please make sure to like, share, and subscribe to this channel.
Today we'll be talking about your Kansas City Chiefs with Billy Truelove. Billy, welcome back.
Thanks. I'm excited.
Yeah, glad to have you back. We're, of course, presented by Complete Weddings and Events, your leading provider of photo, video, DJ, photo booth, lighting, and coordination services. Please visit them at CompleteWeDo.com. Tonight, I am drinking the venerable Daisy Cutter beer from Half Acre Brewery in Chicago. They certainly don't sponsor us, but we'll pick up the phone if you guys want to call. All right. So, I think that this can be a pretty exciting episode given the way the team looked this last weekend against the Las Vegas Raiders. I refuse to call them by any one correct name. Anybody that watched the game on TV probably had trouble telling exactly where it was. It probably looked like a neutral location given the amount of red that was in the stands. And I hope that's what the NFL was looking for, because when you pick a transient city that nobody's from, that's what a game's going to look like. So anyway, aside from that, let's talk observations from the game. So Billy, what were your thoughts watching that game?
To me, it was kind of like the season finally started on Sunday night, because even any win that we've gotten this year, everyone that paid a close enough attention knew our offense was just still sputtering. It didn't look like we were used to it looking. And I never even really focused too much on the defense during that time because they had that offense to work with. And everything seemed to finally click. And Josh, you know more than anyone, probably, especially after making our picks this past week. If you've been watching podcast 1558, I've especially been about as negative as I've ever been in a long time since Patrick's been here, because of all the high expectation that we had. And we know what this team is about, and it hasn't looked itself at all. Andy's been confused. He has said weird things in conferences. It's just looked odd. And no better time to get your shit together and get to immediately turn around and have a matchup to really solidify how we're feeling right now, because Dallas is a legit job for us next weekend. And if we can pull that off, then we are just right back at feeling like we can go 20-0.
Got it. Chris, any thoughts that were different than that?
Well, the margin for error just seemed to all of a sudden increase again, because this is one thing, after Mike Hughes' fumble on the punt return, it's kind of back in mind. You're thinking, oh man, here we go again. I mean, Oakland takes it, they go back down, they tie it up, and is this going to be the same thing where we just can't get our own way? And no, it wasn't like that at all. And I talked a little bit about the yin and the yang with turnovers too. I mean, there were a few lucky bounces, especially the one with Tyreek Hill. I mean, this is what we've been saying all along. If they stop turning the football over, they're going to blow the doors off somebody. And it so happened to be that the Raiders were standing on the train tracks that night.
Yes, Jack Parkman.
That's a great way to put it.
Get the scoreboard now, grasshopper. But yeah, it was. Yeah, I mean, I guess the fear of, oh, here we go again, went away very quickly. I mean, they moved the ball at will on the Raiders. The defense, I think, continue to improve. You take away, I guess, the Mike Hughes fumble, really they only gave up that one touchdown at the beginning of the second half. So it was by far their best all-around game of the season, and something to make you think, okay, we knew that was there. We were just waiting for it.
Yeah, speaking of turnovers, I think we got to give it to my guy, Dirty Dan, who had the big pick. That was poetry to see. So, Brian, before I ask you the same question, what your thoughts on the game were, if you could move a little bit, just kind of move your shoulders a little bit out of the way, because I think is that Teddy Bridgewater trying to tackle a fumble returner from that Broncos Eagles game, because that's about what that looks like. And Homer Simpson looks like the look that Vic Fangio had on his face. So there you go. All right. So what do you think of the Chiefs game?
Okay. Well, I think the first thing, and I've seen this talked about online quite a bit. I just kind of want to put it out there as well, because I was thinking of the same thing. It's just kind of what we've known over the last few years. It reminds me of kind of the Chiefs that we've grown over the years, decades, obviously, but what we've come to know in the last few years is kind of what we become accustomed to with moving the ball and being able to answer whatever was coming at us with whenever. That's one thing I got really excited about. Was seems like every time the Raiders did something in the first half, even going into the first couple possessions in the third quarter, they did something we were able to answer, and it made for a momentum, maintaining momentum the way we needed to maintain it. Then obviously it played out in the last quarter and a half that really just kind of you wouldn't expect a blowout like that going into like the 8th minute of the third quarter. It just looked like it was going to be a back and forth thing, but then got away from them, and it got away hard. So just reminded me of what we've gotten used to. And they were, was it you, Josh, or I don't know who was saying it, but just kind of the way the defense improved over the last 4 games or 5 games, or the way the numbers that were allowed versus the first part of the season. I guess the first part of the season, the first quarter. And we've been talking about this and going back, and I always use the Indianapolis Colts game a few years ago as like kind of the where I talk about like how we were running things and then they ran over us. Was that 2019 or something like that? And I'm like, all right, just stay the course, relax. They're going to figure this out, make the adjustments they need to make, and then comes around. And it sometimes this one seems like took a little bit longer to get to this game for things to turn around in a meaningful way that gets the fan base excited. But here we are, and that's like a shot in the arm. It was just a shot of life. So that's what we were looking for and what we were hoping for. And here it is, it came. And so we got to carry it on to the Cowboys. And but yeah, let's enjoy this one for now. And I share your sentiment when you said Sorensen with the pick. I was like, oh, look at that. Someone, I remember talking about, like, mark my words, Sorensen's going to get a pick next game. I'm like, there it is. That's
yeah.
No, one of my favorite comments has been, oh, great. Now he's just earned himself more playing time.
Yeah. Man, so how big has that Melvin Ingram pickup been?
It's been good.
Been absolutely huge. I mean, there's pressure coming from the front seven. It's crazy. And I think it's kind of easy to sit there and say, well, why didn't we just make that signing in the offseason? But it seemed like both Brett Veach and Melvin Ingram needed to go through some stuff to realize that he was meant to be on this team. And I can't wait to see him go after Justin Herbert here in a couple of weeks. One other thing that I'll say, I got to echo Brian's whole thing. I mean, after watching a game like that, and the whole commentary about the 2019 season when they lost back-to-back games to the Texans and the Colts, when it was just, everybody found out you could run the ball against the Chiefs, and they figured it out. And this has been taking longer. So I actually just wrapped up writing the draft for my column for Arrowhead One, and the whole thing is about you got journeys versus destinations. When you're talking about life, you want to enjoy the journey. The life is the journey, if you will. And my whole point in that was that I don't think a football season's a journey at all. It's a destination, because we get to redo this every 6 months. So, nobody a handful of years from now, unless you're trying to recap stuff like this, are going to remember that we lost a bunch of games in the first half of the season if they end up taking care of business at the end of this year. It's kind of like go back and recap the 2015 season. They were 1-5 at one point, but I mean, nobody remembers that crap. We remember that we beat Houston 30-0 for the first playoff win. So everybody could finally shut the F up about how the Chiefs are the team that got there every year and couldn't win. And, that entire season was worth it just to put an end to that garbage. But anyway, So I guess let's talk a little bit more. Where do we think we're going for the rest of the season starting this next week? We have a big game with Dallas coming, and Dallas obviously is one of the better teams in the NFC. I don't think that we can expect them to come out as flat as they did against the Broncos. But I also don't think the Chiefs are going to let them go out and just rattle off points like they did against the Falcons. So, Brian, is there anything particular you're looking forward to for this week?
I'm just looking forward to. I would like to see the defense have a nice game. I just want to see consistency. If we can pull that off again, going up against Dak, and the way, just you want to see if you're looking forward to the preseason, the postseason, which I don't want to get too much into that, but obviously we need to maintain some consistency going forward. So I mean, we're going to be looking at the defense, holding them where we need to hold them, making the big plays that need to happen where they need to happen. So, I mean, just like anyone else out there, looking at what the defense is going to be doing, what kind of pressure they're putting on Prescott, and going from there. I mean, I'm going to be looking forward to seeing how they cover the pass defense, because I want to see more of that and more pressure put on that. But Dallas is they have been coming out swinging the first half of this season, so. And it's the Cowboys, and I mean their fan base. They seem they're diehards. So we'll see what goes on from there. But I just want to see consistency in defense. So to prove they're going to do back-to-back defensive games, because as we know in the postseason, that's like the key to getting to the next game after that.
So, Chris, let's talk a little bit about consistency with defense. How would you define a consistent defensive approach against the Cowboys? Would that be holding them under a certain number of points, holding them under a certain number of yards, holding them to a third down conversion rate? What are your thoughts on that?
Red zone efficiency. I think the Cowboys probably are going to move the ball. I still think that Elliott and Pollard are potent enough to, I do like the Chiefs secondary. They've been playing a lot better, but I do think that the Cowboys are balanced enough that they can find their way in between the 20s. It's going to be about holding the field goals and not letting them in the end zone. I think that's really going to be the key thing to focus on.
Yeah, Billy, any thoughts on the defensive side of the ball? What do you think is going to be a successful defensive stand against the Cowboys?
I think the pressure, it should really sit on our secondary. I think we're going to have to play a lot of man, and you have to take away the run game from them. It hasn't been super flashy like Zeke has been in the past, but it is something that they lean towards. I mean, they ran the ball. They run it a number of ways. They can get it in CeeDee Lamb's hand. They have Pollard. They have Elliott. They ran it for about 30 times against Atlanta. And I think our secondary, I'm not. I guess I don't want to say I'm worried. I'm not worried about our secondary. I think Snead and Ward and Fitton and Tyron and them guys can really just kind of handle their self. Make Dak find those tight throws. Make him be accurate. Don't let them just run all over us. Because that's just going to make it a long game. I'd rather get in a shootout if we can. Put it on our secondary, take away the run game. And if our front seven is playing the way they are, I really think that linebacking core is coming together, which in a way we haven't seen since Derek Johnson. And really, he was doing it on his own back then. It's crazy to see what this linebacking group is looking like. And I'm still every week, I'm just shocked that Andy Reid was prepared to not start Nick Bolton when this season began. He only got out there because of injury, and we're seeing he should have been out there, or it should have been the plan to put him out there from the start, because he's earned every second of it. So I think our defense is going to surprise some people on Sunday. We'll see if our offense brings that same energy it just had this past Sunday night.
Here's what I'm going to say is consistency. Steve Spagnuolo, please consistently do not do something stupid like put Dan Sorensen in man coverage with CeeDee Lamb. If we can do that would be great.
Even Cedric Wilson, please don't.
Yeah, exactly. But no, I'm right there with you guys. I'm looking forward to see what our linebacking core of Bolton and Gay does against this Dallas team with a good two-headed monster running attack. I mean, it's like Chris was saying, you have Zeke Elliott, but you also have Tony Pollard, and I mean, it's one of those situations where, I hate to infuse too much fantasy into this situation, but if you have Tony Pollard in a keeper league, hold on to him in case Dallas decides I don't want to keep paying for Zeke this offseason, because you could have an RB1 right there. And the Dallas's offense probably would not miss too many beats if they would make a move like that. I have no insider information, obviously, that something like that could happen, but that's the type of move that you see in the NFL, and that's how good their running back core is. So the Chiefs offense, Billy, what do you think is going to be the key to this? And elaborate a little more than just more of the same what we did to the Raiders.
I well, without saying a little bit, keep doing what we did, except keep doing what you did in the short the short game. Run the ball. The dink and dunk stuff, people are getting fired up about us wanting dink and dunk now because we didn't want it when Alex was here. It's two completely different things. What we don't want dink and dunk. We want these defenses to adjust. That's all we want, because it's killing us. It's killing this style of offense. I think Patrick is starting to appreciate that he can take this pressure off himself by keeping it not sexy, doing the short stuff. And the deep ball would be better. We took multiple deep shots Sunday night. And I know Vegas isn't a great defense, but he got to see the adjustment take place, I think, or just getting to see what that short game will do for him. And the offensive line absolutely stepped up as well for him. So I do think they need to play a little bit more of that, just bait them in. They've got a lot of trust in some of these corners. They're going to let guys like Diggs kind of see if he can hang with Tyreek Hill. That's ridiculous. But if they want to do that, make them get into those man situations, bring them safeties in. And I think we may have Clyde back. So if you can keep Clyde fresh, keep Darrell Williams fresh, and just bang that ball up the middle against them, they'll adjust. And eventually we won't have to do this shit every single week.
Chris, I'm going to make a comment, and I want to see what your thoughts are on this. But I think this is going to resonate with you. The whole idea of finally starting to put the defense off balance, does this remind you of the power pitcher that comes into Major League Baseball, throws the ball 101 miles an hour every single time, has a great first season, then realizes his arm hurts like hell every single time, and finally some veteran kind of grabs him by the ear and goes, dude, stop it. Start trying to keep the hitters off balance, figure out how to throw a flipping curveball, and you're going to pitch for 15 years instead of 5. What are your thoughts on that?
It's a good analogy. It's not even learn how to throw a curveball. It's you don't have to throw your arm out every time you throw a fastball. And even sometimes when you take velocity off of it, you get more movement and it's harder to hit. This is kind of a weird thought, but the whole fact that Andrew Wiley was playing right tackle in some ways, I think, was a bit of a blessing in disguise, because the favorite part of my game plan was the fact that, especially with Kelsey, is that they were keeping in the tight end to block on that side and then quickly release as Max Crosby was actually bearing down on Pat. That was really smart, because that took advantage of two things: the aggressiveness of the pass rush, and also, as we just said, taking advantage of the underneath stuff with probably your best run after the catch option more often than not in that first half. So I really enjoyed the fact that they got very creative with their screen game, both with the running backs and the tight ends.
Got it. Yeah, Brian, what are you looking forward to offensively?
Well, I like what Billy said about what's that, Deacon Dunk? That's the first I've heard that phrase. Is that?
Oh yeah. Yeah, that's a check down.
Okay, yeah. I mean, I remember during the Ravens game, we had a lot of check downs and move the ball. It seemed pretty effective. Correct me if I'm wrong, but it was one of those kind of losses that were like we could have gone both ways pretty easily. But I remember even saying on the show that to kind of piggyback up what Billy said about, like, it's not really about like flashy. It's about making them adjust and about confusing. And then it's also to me, it's just like about switching it up. and making them like do some guesswork in it. And we all love seeing deep throws that turn into big plays, and that's what gets the headlines, gets you motivated and fired up. But moving the ball consistently down the field, if they're taking that out, if the other other teams in the league spent their offseason trying to figure out how do we take Mahomes' long big plays out of the game. Okay, well, then we're gonna have to adjust to some checkdowns and go that direction, because we're gonna get more first downs that way, and make it work in that direction. That's me speculating, though. I would assume, though, however, that they're taking that out of it a little bit more. So I like having these options out there to kind of mix it up. But yeah, moving the ball like that, I do like seeing those checkdowns if they're effectively used, and let's not get too married to them or whatever. But I remember them thinking they were quite effective in the earlier games, even though we took a number of L's during that, but they seemed pretty effective during those games. So if we see more of that, kind of divide it up. And I remember, the running the ball as well. And gosh, it seems like they were doing that very effectively as well against the Raiders. So obviously that's kind of firing in all cylinders, so to speak. But I'm looking forward to whatever the big play is going to be. What is it going to? Is it going to be that fake punt kind of thing, kind of big play? Is it going to be the?
That was incredible, by the way.
That was.
or was it the first drive or second drive that seemed like they're going to answer back, and then they made a deep pass, but then we knocked the ball out of the hands and forced a fumble that way. Those kinds of big plays. Seems like those are the ones that those momentum shift situations. Obviously, that's what I think we all look forward to those, but I'm really looking forward to what that's going to be. But check downs and big plays. That's my headline there.
I mean, you just defined most of Tom Brady's career, and that's how it kind of tore through the league, which kind of, I'm noticing two team stats that I absolutely love. And the first one was third down efficiency for the Chiefs, 9 of 15. That is an incredible conversion rate. And what that means is that the Raiders were never able to take the Chiefs off the field on third down. And then conversely, the defense took the Raiders off the field on third down 8 out of 9 times. So those are the type of team stats that I'm looking forward to this week. You got to have that efficiency, and it's all the not cute stuff, the third down, and if you're converting 9 out of 15, that means you're probably in a lot of less than 5-yard situations, which means you have options and you're keeping the defense off balance. So let's look a little ahead, at the risk of looking too far ahead. So the rest of the schedule, we have 4 games against the AFC West, and then we have 2 other games against the AFC, and our lone NFC opponent is this weekend against Dallas. So Dallas at home, and then we play the Broncos, Raiders, and Chargers in order, then the Steelers, Bengals, and then we have the Broncos to end that. So, my thought process on this is they need to go 4-0 against the division and ideally win 2 of the other 3. And it can kind of be dealer's choice how that goes. I have a hard time believing that it's going to come down to, playoff tiebreakers with the Steelers and the Bengals, because the real mission just needs to be win the AFC West and host a playoff game, and then figure out what you're going to do after that. So Billy, what are your thoughts on the remaining schedule, and what do you think they need to do to take care of business?
Well, what just jumps off the screen to me is that, first off, this season up until Sunday night has just sucked. It's just not what we wanted it to be. It's been very confusing. And I don't think you can write it up any better that we just whooped the Raiders' ass. We have a massive opportunity with us going into the bye week. If you can take out Dallas, we know how Andy is. We know how Andy is in the bye. To think that there were a lot of people that thought this team's not going to make the playoffs at all. Now you beat Dallas. You go into the bye and rattle off 3 straight AFC West wins. We can go from almost maybe not making the playoffs to running away with this division in 1 month. And it's crazy to think that everything just turned that fast. It's so wild. This could be one of the wildest endings to a season we've ever seen. Since Patrick's come in, it's been pretty smooth sailing into the playoffs and, getting to the AFC Championship game, getting to the Super Bowl, winning or losing. It's been nuts. And this it's been kind of smooth. This year has been crazy. I can't believe the way it's lining up. I'm not as scared of the Bengals as I was maybe a few weeks ago and things like that. I think, you run away with the West here in this next month. And like you said, you can really, you will really just be in control at that point, which we could not have said, 4 or 5 days ago.
Well, the thing that could be really wild is that we could have the second best record in the AFC and end up as a 4 seed.
It's insane. The amount of
based off tiebreakers.
The number of wins separating from top to mid of the pack. It's just it seems like everyone is in the same, 1 or 2 games decides a lot of these storylines. So yeah, it's just so clustered. And that freaking Ravens game, god damn it.
Yeah, well
freaking Ravens game.
Them and the Chargers. Them and the Chargers.
And the Chargers game.
I mean, both of those were just coulda, shoulda, wouldas. We could be 8-2, sitting there with the Tennessee Titans, and then still in second place because we'd be at 8-2. Having lost to the Tennessee Titans, I mean, if there's a loss we deserve to take, by God, it's that one. Yeah, I mean, it's just this is just wild stuff. So, Chris, any thoughts that you have on the rest of the schedule?
Oh yeah, the door's wide open. It's crazy to think that this team, the same old cliche, they control their own destiny, but they truly do here. And yeah, I don't see them losing another division game. And yeah, I'm not afraid of the Steelers and not afraid of the Bengals. I think really this Sunday is going to be the toughest game they're going to play the rest of the season.
Hold the phone. You're not afraid of a team that couldn't put up more than 16 points against the Lions and couldn't move the ball in overtime? Sorry, I tried. Brian, what are your thoughts on the rest of the season schedule?
I think Chris nailed it. I mean, obviously the schedule's tough. I mean, it's professional football and anything can happen. But Dallas, if we're going by numbers, going by what we're looking at here, Dallas looks like the opponent that if we get past this, going to the bye week, like Billy said, the momentum factor, the confidence factor, and the fact we have one of the best coaches, and we got Mahomes, we got our core group doing what they do. That should make for an exciting run into the December and January months. So yeah, I mean, but obviously, I remember watching the game on Sunday and all amped up and watching it, how exciting it was, and then I feel like it's going to be like that on steroids come this Cowboys game, because we know what it means in terms of momentum and the confidence, and what it means in the next 8 weeks of the sport. So, yeah, I mean, I'm looking forward to. Just focusing on that defense. I'm like I said earlier, after we played the Colts and seeing improvements. We were talking about the fans earlier, or the fans who are, looking forward to when catchers and pitchers report next year for the Royals. I'm like, what are you talking about? This is I use Josh. I always use Josh mentioned it earlier, the 1-5 Chiefs. I always use that as kind of the barometer. I'm like, they were 1-5 but still made that big run. So until we have a scenario like that, I'm like, if you're counting out this team at that point where we are a few weeks ago, I was shaking my head just completely. That's disrespectful. But yeah, just looking forward to more of the same and consistency, maybe even ramping up that defense this weekend. I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, ramping up that defense would be great. Couple more turnovers would be awesome. And then, for the love of God, let's keep it clean. So I think we covered, for the most part, what we're looking at in the AFC. So what are the thoughts on the NFC? Brian, what are your thoughts looking at the other conference?
Oh, well, let me think here. I think looking at the Cowboys, I think, they're doing more this year than we've seen them in the Cowboys that we know I talked about watching the Simpsons in the 90s. I always go back to the 90s Cowboys, and I really should not be doing that. I should stop doing that.
That's been probably the closest they've been to being the 90s Cowboys is this year.
That's correct.
Yeah.
How are my Jets doing, by the way? Are they doing any good? They've won a few games.
The shine has been
Billy doesn't
knocked
know
off
this.
with Mike White. Yeah,
I adopted the Jets I adopted them last year after their big season last year.
You getting a tax credit on that or something?
Yeah, I was gonna say this is what it looks like when parents don't like their kids. But anyway,
Yeah. You trying to foster an entire NFL team?
Whenever I see the Jets do good, I get a little excited. I'm hoping, it's like when I rescued my cat from the cold in March in Indiana, and now it's my cat, and maybe it's one of those things where, this thing they're sick. It's the Jets, and I kind of want to see them do good a little bit, just not good enough to beat us. So, which I'm not too worried about at this point.
so the Jets is like rescuing a cat that's just a horrible animal that tries to scratch your leg every time you walk by it.
Absolutely. It is
dying in the cold. Are we? Is it a good thing they didn't recruit? Real question: is it a good thing that Lawrence isn't on their team, or how do we feel about that? I'm sorry to turn this show on its head, but
Trevor Lawrence isn't on their team.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, he's not really doing anything for Jacksonville, but that might be coaching as well. I mean, the reality is we could be having the same watch as to whether or not the Jags or the Jets are going to be getting the first pick again. They're probably not going to, because the Houston Texans are 1-8 and the Detroit Lions are 0-8-1. So one of those two are going to be picking a quarterback, which makes sense, because I mean, Deshaun Watson, if he stays out of jail and plays in the NFL again, which I still think is a not really a foregone conclusion, regardless, Houston's going to be looking for a new quarterback. And I think that the Detroit Lions are learning that Jared Goff is not that deal. So he's probably going to be
that deal.
He's probably going to be a backup, after this. So
all right. One more thing before I say about the NFC is Seattle did not score, and my kicker is on the fantasy team is Myers, and he kicks for Seattle, and he didn't score any points. So stop doing that. Score something.
Yeah, Pete Carroll would have been able to throw out something besides a cell phone on some of those challenge plays. He might have had a chance.
That's hilarious. It looked like a flip phone too.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I know people that have had those within the past 2 or 3 years.
Yeah.
I call those people grandpa.
Yeah, exactly. Well, these are people my age. Anyway, Chris, what are your thoughts on the NFC?
Well, clearly Odell Beckham Jr. was the missing link for the Rams, so they're really taken off since then. Yeah, now you got the Bucks struggling a bit, and pick your poison in terms of who's the cream of the crop. I mean, I like Green Bay a lot right now. Their defense is playing well, and this is the most complete team that I can remember they've had, with Aaron Rodgers being there.
Yeah.
So it could be very well that Green Bay ends up being the 1 seed out of the NFC.
Speaking of Odell Beckham Jr. being the missing link in the Rams, have you seen all the memes where you have him and Robert Woods? Billy knows what this is. Doing the whole Nancy Kerrigan, Tanya Harding.
Oh no.
Yeah.
Goodness.
Obviously nothing happened. I think that's obvious. This is just a freak circumstance, but I got to go all Larry the cable guy here. That's funny. I don't care who you are. Even though I remember living through the Nancy Kerrigan, Tanya Harding thing. That was not funny at all. At all. I mean, Nancy Kerrigan was the hope for U.S. figure skating, and
you need to know what you need to do. Watch Mad TV the week that happened, because it happened on the middle of the week, and that weekend Mad TV did a thing on it. You need to watch that and see. Come back to that 90s humor.
Well, while we're talking about random stuff, one of my favorite Weird Al Yankovic songs was the parody of the Crash Test Dummy song.
Oh, yeah, I know what you're talking about.
But it was headline news, but he does a whole thing about Michael Kay, the guy who went to Singapore and vandalized cars and got caned. And then it was the second verse was Nancy Kerrigan and Tanya Harding. And then the third verse was
Lorena Bobbitt.
John and Lorena Bobbitt. Yeah. I mean, that song for somebody my age was just so friggin' perfect, because that was the news cycle through middle school when, you know, you're just kind of starting to recognize stuff that's happening. And, you know, now I look back at all that, I'm just like, what did we watch? That was insane. I'm surprised our parents let us turn the TV on at all.
Weird Al was considered family humor. He still is. And that was family humor back in the 90s.
Yeah.
On that.
Yeah. But anyway, Billy, what are your NFC thoughts before you have to bounce out of here?
I think it's very similar to the AFC right now. The parity in the NFL is great every year, and this is no exception. We were riding low. The Bills were riding high. They blew to Jacksonville. We're coming up. The NFC, Tampa Bay is just a mess right now. It seems like Green Bay got slapped week 1 by Jameis Winston. And the Rams seem like the front runner for me most of the season outside of Arizona. But now, can Kyler Murray stay healthy? Can he get back on the field? I'm with Chris. The front runner right now is Green Bay to me, because they've only taken 1 loss, and they got to get their funny week out of the way week 1 and have not looked back since. And no one takes the Chiefs game serious since it was Jordan Love, and nor should they. Other than that, it's Dallas, and I don't know. I get it. They were flat against Denver, but it also just seemed like they just didn't line up well with Denver. Their offensive line in Dallas is not what it has been over the past 4 or 5 years. It comes and goes now. And when it's going, they are bad. And I really think that is something that I'm, if Tyron Smith doesn't go Sunday, I think he probably will. But if he doesn't, the Chiefs should be able to have their way. You can't look at the Atlanta game. You should look at the Denver game, though, and the fact that Denver almost ran for 200 yards on them. And if there's anything like we talked about, we want to make that defense adjust, hit them in the weak spot, take it right up the middle with them with a fresh running back as often as you can, and then let Patrick take them apart. I really think that's what we can do. But back to the question, yeah, it's Green Bay for me. And then it is probably a mix between Dallas, LA, and Arizona until we really figure out who's right. I think Matt Stafford will keep getting better with that squad, though, as we get approach the postseason.
All right. So one quick thing before you go. We had the who we think we're riding high. I want to throw back to Weird Al one more time. So who do we think in the NFC is riding dirty and who is white and nerdy? Billy, go. And you can make this in the whole league. So we got riding dirty, white and nerdy.
and so what am I trying? Who's riding dirty right now?
So who's been dirty the entire game? So where I'm going to go is the Miami Dolphins have been riding dirty. They're a threat every once in a while. They've ruined a couple of things, but for the most part, they're just down there in the mud where they belong. White and nerdy is the Detroit Lions. I mean,
I like how Josh, whenever he comes up with these ideas of like random ideas, okay, I'm gonna throw out a game for you. Not gonna explain the rules. Go. Who's this? Who's that? Metaphor.
Yeah. But I am. But yeah, I'm gonna hop out of here. Thanks, guys, for letting me get on here. I'll definitely be back next week if you'll have me.
Sounds good. See you then.
All right, sir. Let's go, Chiefs.
Chiefs.
Yeah. I was gonna say riding dirty. I want to say the Vikings because Kirk Cousins. I don't care what you guys say. I'm not gonna bench him. It's not happening.
I've never told you to bench him, especially when you play my team. But...
All right, let's cut back to that.
Yeah, Chris, by the way, we didn't smack up 1558 after the whooping we put on them and the content creators.
We'll have to do that offline.
Yeah. I don't think we had a proper discussion, Chris and I, about our by the skin of your teeth game that I pulled out fantasy game. I don't know. That was
podium's yours.
Well, it's a race to the bottom. And it's unfortunate that even though I was neglectful in properly putting the right players or changing out my bench and still able to pull out a 0.14 win. I mean, I don't know what to say other than, I've watched, I think I texted the group chat about the most excited I've ever been because my wife, Tanya, was sitting next to me and she's like, So you want that guy to do good? I'm like, no, I want them off the field. Never touch the ball. He can't do anything. Fumble the ball to keep their offense off the field. I don't care. Bench him. But I was like, so you're rooting for a person to not play? I'm like, that's exactly what I'm doing. Don't let that guy in the game.
So Brian, I got to say, pulling out a win like that when you neglect your lineup, karma is a real thing and you will pay for that one. And the way you normally pay for that is you're going to have a week where you're going to put up, we'll say 130 points, and you're going to happen to play the team that puts up 132, which you haven't felt fantasy suffering until you have the second best score of the week and you play the best score of the week.
I need help too. Like my whole bench is all broken or gone, or I have an empty slot. I don't know what to do. Like, am I allowed to trade or something, or how do I get more players in there? I have an empty slot. I don't know.
So we'll take this offline and I'll show you how to do a waiver wire claim.
All right, cool. All
right.
So for karma's sake, who I played this following week after you, Brian, I won by 0.2 instead of losing by 0.2. Dead serious.
Well, let me check that out.
105.84 to 105.64.
Ooh. What was that like? Is that thrilling?
Chris, have you ever seen a tie in an exact tie in a league where you go to the second digit?
No.
Yeah, I have, and I actually saw it twice.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I felt like lightning was being struck and that I needed to move from wherever. So looking at Chris and I's team, we've got a good run going here, but the way that we set those divisions up, we've got the 4 worst teams in one and the 6 best teams in the other. Probably should have put a little more attention into just not having those at all, but big decision that we have to make this week is what we're going to do with our defense. We've been rolling with the Broncos defense. We've got to decide how we're getting Russell Wilson off the bench. And I think that's really it. So we've got some things to talk about there. Brian is still riding high, in 4th place in our Milwaukee Chiefs fantasy group that he's in. And I am riding dirty in 10th place. I have a horrible team that I've
but you kicked my ass last game.
Yeah. That's true. The Jags beat the Bills 9-6.
My defense only scored 1 point. My kicker scored 0 points, and I still have Antonio Brown in there, even though he was out the whole game. So I'm not doing so hot right now, but we're gonna come back.
Yeah, I mean, this is learning type of stuff. I mean, you're turning into a fantasy addict. I mean, make no mistake about that.
Mm-hmm.
You're sitting here making comments like, I don't want this guy to play well. And your wife is sitting there going, what the hell are you talking about? What alternative reality are we in? Fantasy, baby.
Watching the
all right, so
Steelers game. Why are we watching them? Just watch with me.
Exactly. So Brian and I have a good friend from college, and this is Howland. So we had a fantasy league, and this was the first year of really fantasy sports that I ever did. A bunch of us did a baseball league, and we found a couple of things out in the middle of this first league. First of all, we had one guy that had played a decent amount of fantasy baseball before, and he recognized pretty quickly that none of us knew how to draft, and had what ended up being like 4 out of the best 5 closers, because you could just tell during the draft what was going on. So that ended up happening. But the thing that we found out is this college friend of Brian and I's, we found out how little he ever paid attention to sports at all. And he just completely tanked, dead last place. We gave him all kinds of guff, and this dude flipped a switch and just turned into this sports watching animal, and has been a huge fan ever since then. And about halfway through the next season, his wife is just like, dude, what the hell did you do? He just sits around and watches ESPN all day now, and so on and so forth. And he went out and rolled the league and won that second year. So he was just on a rampage to go through and just right every single wrong, and has been a strong contender ever since then. It's been a lot of fun. So I'm kind of seeing some of that brewing in Brian here. He's gonna he's gonna be playing for blood next year.
He's gonna be watching the Ocho over there. Just can't get him away from the TV.
Yeah, watch the Ocho. One of these phones that goes your ear to your thing.
He's gonna be asking if we want to do fantasy cornhole, something like that.
Yeah.
The answer is yes. We'll try it. So
yeah. Why not?
All right. So so fantasy. We should probably throw out a good stat. Let's see here. Let's pull up our league, and I'll throw out what jumped out at me the most. So let's look at players that Chris and I had and get into our matchup against Billy. We prepare really well for this part. That's what I'll say. So Brian's fantasy player of the week, I believe, was Kirk Cousins. Like,
well, it was none of the week. No. I mean, I'm gonna go. Can I do a player? What's the opposite of a player of the week? The player of the week, WEAK. The player of the week.
You are the player of the week.
I'm gonna go with. All right. Even though Myers, he's a kicker though, so he can only kick based on what the offense provides. I'm gonna go with the whole defense of the LA Rams. 1 sack the whole game, and that was all they had to show for it. A loss, 31-10 loss against San Francisco. So
yeah,
congratulations, LA.
Yeah, so I'm gonna go ahead and call out the return of the Mac Tyreek Hill with 27.5 points. That's what I'm going with for a fantasy stat of the week. Chris, anything jumping out at you?
I had some help from a couple of backup running backs. So in the watch party league, AJ Dillon
for me
nicely, and that's actually probably what put me over the top. And then in my auction league, Mark Ingram did just enough to put me over the top on that game. So thank you, Alvin Kamara and Aaron Jones, for that.
Yeah. No, I definitely am glad in a league with a bunch of work friends. I've got AJ Dillon, and I work in Wisconsin, so you can imagine how happy most of the locals that I play against are going to be that he's on my team. He put up 26.8 in ESPN PPR this last week, and he will be the RB1 for the Packers for at least the next 2 weeks because Aaron Jones has the MCL sprain. So hope for him to get back quickly because, you want good players on the field, and that's just how it is.
It's like Clyde, it's going to be a month. So,
2 weeks is what I had heard, but I mean, we're going into week 11, which means that there's 3 weeks of fantasy in pretty much every league in the world before you get into playoffs. So now is the time to have AJ Dillon on your team. And you're not correcting that now. He's either there or better luck next year. All right, so last two things that we have are if the week was a song and what is your final take. So Chris, you got a song for us?
Yeah, it took me a little while to think of this one, but I love rubbing it in the Raiders' face. So I'm actually going to go with one of my favorite Pearl Jam songs, which is just simply called "Whipping." I mean, that was a whipping, if anything, on Sunday night. So it is a punk hard fast rocking song. So that was my song.
Whipping. Brian, what do you got?
What's that song that's by The Weeknd and Daft Punk? I feel it coming. It's like, feel the tides are turning. I think I feel it coming in. I feel it. I feel like that was like the turning point right there for this season. Like that was the kind of win that we're used to seeing 400 yards from Mahomes, 5 touchdowns, no INTs that I recall. That kind of performance is what we're used to seeing. So I feel it coming.
Yeah, got it. So I'm going with the Aerosmith song "Amazing," and the reason I do this is as I mentioned before, I wrote my entire column for Arrowhead won, based on that song. And it's the whole line, life's a journey, not a destination. You just can't tell what tomorrow brings. So I hadn't really listened to that song for a while, but for whatever reason that popped into my head. And so I wrote this whole thing about, you don't have to look at a football season as a journey, just look at the destination. And it's okay to just kind of forget if the season had a handful of wrong turns. And I make a comparison that it's like you're thinking of a road trip. And do you really think by the time you get to the destination, you're hanging out with who you want to hang out with or seeing what you want to see? Are you really concerned about the exit or two you missed or the wrong turns that you made? And I kind of look at the 4 losses to this point as, those are just wrong turns. And, the comment that I make is when you think about the wrong turns against the Ravens and the Chargers and then the Bills and the Titans, it's a pretty good chance Kansas City keeps going the way that they're supposed to, that we might be on some of these blocks again in the playoffs and, might have a chance to make the correct turn this time. So that's what I'm going with.
Very good. Nice. Sounds good.
Yeah. All right. Final takes. You guys have anything compelling?
Chris, do you have something?
Yeah. So Art Stewart passed away last Thursday at the age of 94. And if you're familiar with the Kansas City Royals, Art Stewart was actually director of scouting for them, and he joined the organization and really from the start in 1969. So, he actually, I think, was a special advisor to the front office all the way up until his death. So he was very instrumental in bringing in a lot of talent to the organization all the way till I have an interesting story about him, I guess, stumbling upon Mike Moustakas during a high school baseball game. But heavy heart with Art, but he had a great life, and he was a great asset to one of my favorite organizations.
Yeah, good stuff.
Very good.
Brian, what you got?
Well, not as heavy, but I'm gonna lighten it up a little bit. Did you know that Weezer has a new album out right now?
I did know that.
Yeah, they have a really cool. I checked it out from the library. And did you know that The Offspring also has a new album out?
No, that I did not know.
Wow.
Yeah, The Offspring, and I'm through the first few songs on that as well. And I gotta say, Let the Bad Times Roll, the second track, I'm digging that one right now. So yeah, go check out The Offspring. They just dropped one. It was in 2021. I don't know the exact month, but this year. So go check out The Offspring and go check out Weezer.
My final take is I'm getting pretty excited watching Team USA soccer. I know that they kind of laid a clunker against Jamaica, and Taylor Twellman, who played for the U.S. men's national team, is kind of the soccer expert for the U.S., is along with Alexei Lawless and Tim Howard, is making comments that Jamaica deserved to win that game in the 1-1 draw. Well, you know what? They didn't. And part of the mark of a good soccer team is taking draws, and you should be taking losses on the road in Jamaica. So I'm actually proud of them for that. But what I'm really proud of is the beatdown they put on Mexico earlier. Mexico is the US's rival when it comes to soccer. It's the neighbor. They're always better. And they beat them 2-0, which is great. Now the bad side of this is one of the Mexico players, his wife is getting death threats on social media after that, because people need to find hobbies, and that's just plain ridiculous. But not only was it a 2-0 win, but the goals were scored by Christian Pulisic and Weston McKennie, and that's impactful for a couple of reasons. The U.S. national team has started having higher and higher profile clubs that they have players playing for, and when you look at the landscape of soccer, and I've talked about this before, there's really a small handful of teams that just have so much spending power that it's ridiculous. And so Christian Pulisic plays for Chelsea. Absolutely hate that team as a Tottenham fan, but he's doing great work for him. And to have somebody in a starting really important role wearing the number 10, which is generally what the best player wears, or like the most facilitating player wears traditionally for a jersey, at a massive club in England is huge. And the thing that's really crazy is that all the transfer rumors for this winter window are linking Christian Pulisic with Barcelona, which Barcelona is one of the two biggest clubs in the world, along with Real Madrid. Not a big fan of Spanish football. Definitely think that could be a really bad thing, because there's too many situations where great players for their team, just key cornerstones, go to an overloaded squad with a Barcelona or Real Madrid and like lose a lot of their playing time. One example that I would throw out is Eden Hazard played for Chelsea, and he's part of the Belgian national team, and he was their stud player. And Pulisic essentially replaced his role. He went to Real Madrid and he's been riding the bench, and now he's trying to figure out his way to get out of Real Madrid and get back into an English club. And, we'll see how that whole thing plays out. And so I hope that doesn't happen to Pulisic, because he is the face of U.S. soccer. Weston McKennie's no slouch either. He's a midfielder who plays for Juventus, which is the team with the most, winning pedigree and a ton of money over in Italy. Them along with the two Milan squads are where all the financial power in Italy is. So to see those two guys go and put up goals against Mexico, to me, what really jumped out is, our two blue chip players scored goals in the biggest match, outside of the World Cup. This is qualifying, but when it comes to the U.S. soccer team, beating Mexico is the most important thing you can do, aside from, going out and winning meaningful games in the World Cup. So that's jumping out to me, and I am excited to see them make it to Qatar and hopefully go and make some noise in the World Cup.
All right.
All righty.
Let's see.
Well, good night, Chiefs Gingham, and we'll see you next week.
Yes,
Go Chiefs.
one more thing.
Yeah.
Rock Chalk Jayhawk.
Oh yeah, Mike, how do we not talk about that? Hook it down, horns.
That's right.
By the way, how many Longhorn fans would just kill to have Mac Brown back on the sideline? He's not looking so bad these days, is he?
I like how losing to the Jayhawks in football is like a career-ending thing, no matter like where. It's like, oh, rather burn through a lot to go back to where we want to be, where a lot of head coaches from the opposing teams are have to get fired in order for that to happen.
No, seriously. I mean, I don't see a world where Sarkisian's a coach next year. You can't be.
It's funny how many coaches they've gone through in the last decade. I mean, Charlie Strong, Tom Herman, it's ridiculous.
That Tom Herman one was wild. I mean, he was the guy that everybody wanted, and they got him. And I don't even know where they go at this point. I mean,
they fired him after what? I think he won 9 games 2 years ago. So it's not like
he got like 2 seasons with him. It was crazy. I mean, but seriously, where do they go? I mean, Texas has to be hoping that Urban Meyer or Pete Carroll,
who knows,
decides to get out of the NFL, at which point you've got a 7-year-old and a pervert that you're trying to get back on your sideline, which doesn't really sound like a good, winning formula, if you will. And,
they go after James Franklin at Penn State or Mel Tucker at Michigan State. I don't know, but it's just hilarious how they have really not found any stability since Mac Brown.
Yeah, exactly. But, if you, sit there and don't be grateful for having a really good coach, and apparently making a couple national championship games isn't good enough. You kind of get what you deserve.
Well, even then, you compare their success up against the true blue bloods of football. They don't compare. I mean, they try and act like they're up there with the Alabamas, the Ohio States, and the even Notre Dames of the world, and they don't have the same track record, but they sure as hell act like they do, and that's why I love seeing them get humbled.
Yeah, so before we go, just quick question for you guys: who would you consider the 5 highest profile college football head coaching positions? Think of the school. What do you think are the 5 best jobs in college football to have? Alabama's got to be number 1. Alabama's number 1.
SEC like Clemson, Auburn. I mean,
I'd say probably Ohio State would be up there. I mean, that's a program you can dominate at for a long time. I mean, they've done it since Urban Meyer was there. I want to say, well, if Oklahoma stayed in the Big 12, I would say Oklahoma would be up there. And then after that, maybe LSU, USC.
Yeah, I mean, it
Yeah.
gets kind of hard to get there. I mean, I
Think
would
about the talent pipeline that's at your disposal. I mean, LSU is as good as anybody, and USC, they can lock down the whole West Coast.
Yeah, I mean, realistically speaking, though, you should be able to, as a coach in some of these high profile schools, bring in whoever you want. I mean, to me, the number 1 and 2 are Ohio State and Alabama, and it's probably opposite order: Alabama, Ohio State, and it's based on, you know, tradition, recent success, and all of those things. But after that, I mean, it kind of gets you know, murky for me. And I mean, yeah, you can throw Clemson out, so great, you're the best team in the ACC, which is based on you getting a really good coach. I mean, USC would probably be who I'd put in the 3rd place, because you can lock down the West Coast, and you're in LA, you're in Southern California.
Yeah.
You know, in a vacuum, if you're thinking of places where it should be easy to recruit good talent, you know, Miami should be up there. If you're thinking about tradition, you got the Notre Dames, you got the Michigans of the world. You know, Texas has got to be in the top 10. You know, you're in Austin, you're in Capital City,
Yeah.
you're in a really, really big school, but you know, it's just you can kind of fall off of that, because you know, 20, 30 years ago, Miami would probably be one of the first 2 or 3 that we bring up. You know, 20 years ago, USC would be one of the first 2 or 3 we bring up. So you know, the whole hierarchy is kind of fragile, you know.
Yeah, I think the 2 most consistent are Alabama and Ohio State.
Yeah, for sure on a short and long timeline. But
yeah.
Anyway, I don't know. KU's got to be in that top 10 at this point, right? So.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, we playing opposite day today?
Yeah, obviously. Anyway, all right. Well, good night, Chiefs Kingdom.
All right.